Hello and welcome back to another video. It's been a while since we've done a House prediction, but in 2024 we have different nominees on the ballot today. And so we have Donald Trump and JD Vance heading a Republican ticket with Kamala Harris and God knows who else as the VP for the Democrats. So let's get into the House prediction. So obviously the Republicans have a control of the House that has been very tepid to say the least. I mean, it's been less than double-digit majorities for the past couple of years. In fact, the Republicans right now have a majority from anywhere to like 6 to 8 depending on who you ask. And so it's a troubling thing. We saw the exile of George Santos. Other Republicans have been thrown to the wayside due to controversy. We have other Democrats like Cuellar that are also under fire for a myriad of different moral turpitude issues that they have. And so we're going to get into the district by district prognosis as to what swing area will actually go red or blue in this upcoming election. Let's get started. So due to decades of gerrymandering, we do have less options than you would obviously think. Now, if you look at it at paper, just at the face value, you have about a 435 district map. Okay, so what that means is that there's hundreds of different possibilities in theory. Though obviously what we're talking about here is a couple dozen seats out of 435. Again, gerrymandering makes it so that the parties in the respective states make it super easy for the party that's in control to keep the voters in line. And so, for example, Alabama is gerrymandered to favor the Republican Party, as is California towards the Democrats, okay? So, yes, there are 435 seats, but it's going to be much less that are competitive. So, as you can see right here, there's about 25 that are out in the open as to like, okay, what's going to happen here? So, there's a margin of 25 that could go either way. When you have a majority that's in the single digits, 25 can make all the difference. And so, that checks out. So, let's go on. So let's first look at the generic ballot. Well, what's the generic ballot for you guys watching at home? The generic ballot is a little bit different from the presidential election because it's one thing to say, okay, do you want Trump or Kamala Harris? The difference is that they're saying, okay, do you want Republicans in Congress or Democrats in Congress, which is a different thing. Because, for example, when it was Joe Biden versus Trump, a lot of Democrats could have said, okay, Joe is literally dementia-addled. Therefore, I will vote for a Democrat down ballot, but I might vote for Trump or not vote for the president at all. Nowadays, it might be a little closer as obviously Kamala does not have the same issues Biden does, but a litany of other ones. But at least she does not have mental faculty issues insofar as age is concerned. And so anyway, the Democrats are right now leading by 0.4 percentage points in the popular vote when it comes to this. Now, the real Clear Politics aggregate has the Republicans up by 0.2. This is notable again because this is a difference of 0.6 percentage points, and this is not completely linear. Okay, so just because the Republicans might lead by a little bit or the Democrats might lead by a little bit in a poll does not mean that either one would win the House of Representatives just off of that basis. As we know, gerrymandering in the states makes it so that it's not a 100% correlation between what the popular vote is if you aggregate all 50 states versus what district is in what state and what vote arises from there. And so it's just a heuristic. And so just to give you more of a betting of understanding the context of the last midterm, you'll notice that in 2022, Kevin McCarthy, as the leader of the Republicans in the House, won an extra 9 seats net over the Pelosi-led Democrats, and they also led the popular vote in 2022 by 2.8 percentage points, okay? So with them winning the popular vote by 2.8, they actually gained 9 seats. Now, if the Republicans are tying in the popular vote like we've seen statistically, then it's likely they're not going to gain anything. But we have to break it down bar for bar. Now, to give a point to the contrary, though, we do have the 2020 presidential election where Trump lost, but the Republicans still managed to gain 13 points over the Democrats, 13 seats over the Democratic Party, the caucus. Now, listen, they lost the popular vote by about 3.1 percentage points, which is still 1.6 percentage points better than Trump did against Biden. So if you use that heuristic again, then that would basically mean, as a rule of thumb, that if Trump beats Kamala by, let's say, 2 percentage points in the popular vote, that the Republicans are closer to 4% of the popular vote in the generic ballot. A lot of complicating different factors, but let's just go ahead and go to the proper prediction itself. So right now we have a litany of different competitive races, and we're going to get to the bottom line with all of these. So first and foremost, we're going to go with David Schweikart, who has been embattled for the better part of over a decade for this congressional seat. David Schweikart has corruption charges. He doesn't have any charges when it comes to being a rhino or a bad Republican or anything of the sort. So what that basically means is that it's, okay, Republicans are going to say, okay, you have some minor issues, but we're going to vote for you because God knows what the alternative is. And then in Arizona's District 1, you have Democrats that are going to run against him saying, oh, he has his like charge for whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. He's won the other elections. In fact, he's outran Donald Trump in the state of Arizona just slightly. And if Trump's going to win Arizona by like 5, then it makes sense that he would win again. Again, in his last election, he outperformed Donald Trump by 2.4 percentage points. So that's pretty encouraging. Again, Juan Ciscomani, who may or may not be my uncle, is also outrunning Donald Trump by 1.6 percentage points. In the last election, he beat the Democrat by 1.5. Again, this is impressive because Arizona's 6th district, which I happen to live in, by the way. This is a very competitive suburban Arizona district. A lot of Mexicans, plenty of white people, but of the type that are not going to completely just vote red every time, like the people in the hills of Tennessee. The point being is that clearly Juan Ciscomani is in a position to win by more than even the 1.5 percentage points. That, in my opinion, is pretty impressive. I think he'll probably win from anywhere to like 4 to 8 percentage points. Reason being is that the guy has the appeal. Okay, I've met him a couple times. He is like a mid 40s, brown but not too brown, family, Hispanic, speaks English well. This is exactly what you need for Arizona. Okay, I would know obviously, and so Juan Ciscomani will easily win. You don't need to put too much money in it. Juan Duarte is interesting. Again, he won a district by 0.4 when the Democratic president Joe Biden won by over 10. Just heuristic wise, again, Harris will do worse than Biden did in 2020. The question is by how much. I would say she'd do maybe 6 percentage points worse than the popular vote, but that's not enough to overcome an 11% deficit. And so I think the Democrat will win off that basis. David Valadao is an interesting proposition, of course. In 2022, he won by 3. Winning by 3 in a district like his is actually fascinating because, again, Biden won it by 13. And so it's a difficult thing to say like, oh, he'll lose. As of right now, I'll put him as winning because, again, he won in 2020 when Biden was a stronger candidate, and so therefore I think he has a better chance now that Harris is worse than what Biden was in 2020. That's the heuristic I'm using today. Mike Garcia is also an electoral juggernaut. He's really strong. He outperformed in, I think, 2019 against Christy Smith, I believe, and 2020-22, all strong performances. He may be losing his hair, but I doubt he will lose his bona fides as a electoral juggernaut, and so we're going to just give him that. Ken Calhert is also somebody who is poised to win again. You see that obviously the Republicans won at the presidential level, and he won in 2022. He's been in the office for over 30 years at this point. It'd be crazy to think he'd lose all of a sudden when he's already been winning this whole time. Michelle Steele is also an interesting case. She's Asian. She's in, I think, Orange County, California, so a precocious area when it comes to suburbs and how those trend away from Trump. But also keep in mind what the temperament of the country is today. You see in 2020, Joe Biden won the district by 6, but then she won it by 4.8 in 2022. So she's outperforming the expectation by a ton. And so for that reason, I think she will retain her spot as a Republican right here as a representative. Now, when it comes down to Katie Porter, she's retiring to run for Senate. So then it's going down to Dave Min versus Scott Baugh. Now, this might be interesting because, again, the Republicans almost were 3.4% points away from winning the district in 2022. That being said, they won the popular vote by about 3 percentage points, and they still lost by 3. So unless Trump wins the popular vote by 6 in that logic, then whoever's running like Scott Baugh would have to do incredible numbers, which personally, I don't know who Scott Baugh is, much past the average person looking at the video today. And so the question is, okay, well, then what the hell are we talking about here? It seems like a Democratic seat. All right, so next up we have Lauren Boebert. She's going to win. I've already checked that through. That's obvious. Yadira Cordero. Now, she's interesting because, again, she only won by less than a percentage point in Colorado's 8th district, but also Biden won it by 4.6 percentage points in 2020. So that's a very hard guess to make. I would have to look into the candidates themselves, like Gabe Evans, but to be fair, there's so many candidates that it's hard to tell. That being said, when it comes down to it on paper, 4.6 percentage points for Biden is interesting because, again, Biden won the popular vote by about that amount in 2020. So if Trump wins the popular vote at all against Kamala, that would lead me to think that he would actually carry the Republican to win in this district, unless Gabe Evans turns out to be a bad candidate, which I don't know. Gianna Haynes in Connecticut's 5th district won by less than a percentage point in 22, whereas Biden won it by 11, which makes me think that she sucks as a candidate, but with incumbency on her hand, more so than last time, it seems like she'll have an easier time just winning across the ballot. ticket splitting is more difficult in a presidential year than it is in a midterm. And so you can see why, even though there's a 10% underperformance between 2020 Biden and 2022 Hayes, I think that Hayes will somehow consolidate the Democratic vote under Kamala, believe it or not. Marion Miller Meigs also had a very tough race, I believe, like 4 years ago. But again, she's a decent Republican. I think she's got it completely under wraps. Two reds usually equals a Republican House seat, by the way, because again, Republicans are likely to win the popular vote at this point, whether that be for the House or also especially for the presidency. And so I give the benefit of the doubt to the Republican candidate by 2 or 3 percentage points, because it's what I think Trump is going to win the vote against with Harris at the ticket. And so we also have Zach Nunn in Iowa. I think he's also poised to win. Not much coverage needed there. Eric Sorensen is a difficult one. Biden won his district by 8 in Illinois. He also won it by 4 points in 2022. Leads me to think he'd stay in the seat, even though obviously Republicans are gaining ground over Democrats in 24 over 22. But yeah. Will Harris do 8 points worse than Biden in the Illinois 17th district? I doubt it. Frank Mervan, another tough one, but also this is even more Democrat than Eric Sorensen. Indiana's first district, I think, is in Indianapolis, like the urban part of the state. And so it makes sense that they would have one solid blue district. And so that completely is in line. Jared Golden is also going to stay. He has been non-committal towards voting Democrat for the presidential election, and so he knows how to stay in office. I think he's smart enough to understand that Kamala is not a popular candidate, and he will adjust his platform accordingly. Alyssa Slotkin is retiring to run for the open seat against Mike Rogers as the Democratic nominee for Senate. So now we have Curtis Hertel that doesn't really have name appeal, and then we have Tom Barrett, who nobody knows who that is. Now, Biden barely won the seat in 2020. She won her seat in 2022 by a lot, which leads me to think that Curtis Hertel has a good chance of winning in 2024. That being said, if Alyssa Slotkin was a great candidate and she's out of the picture, then Curtis Hertel, as a generic Democrat presumably, is going to have to run in line with the president. If President Biden won in 2020 by 0.5 percentage points in this district in Michigan, then it seems pretty indicative that Kamala would likely lose his district by 4, which leads me to think that a Republican would actually win the spot right here. Dan Kildee is not running for re-election. He's old as bones. Still probably not as old as Biden, but still pretty skeletal. His district went to Biden in Michigan's 8th district by 2, which leads me to think that a Republican would probably win this state. Okay, even though he is an incumbent that's been there for over a decade, won by 10.3 percentage points in 22, I think he'll do pretty well. Same thing with John James. I think he'll cruise. Not much like Ted, but still pretty slick. Now, Angie Craig is probably somebody who will keep her seat. Again, she won by 7.2 in Minnesota. Minnesota is an enigma because you would assume they'd probably wake up and say, wow, all this looting and bringing down a target. I'd probably vote Republican at that point. But no, they're staying pretty resolutely blue. And so, them and their compatriots will vote in the 2nd district of Minnesota for Angie Craig again. I'm pretty confident. Ryan Zink will probably win. Don Davis, difficult. So assuming this is just a district in North Carolina that went to Biden narrowly in 2020, truth is that Trump will probably win this district in the Republican running. Lori Buckhout would probably win this state district. Now, moving on down to Don Bacon in Nebraska's 2nd district. This is a hard one. We have Tony Vargas versus Don Bacon. Again, Don Bacon is a guy who has been known as not being a complete Trump loyalist. The guy is opportunistic by a lot of people in MAGA. That's what they say about him. He knows how to stay elected. Very much like the Jared Golden of Nebraska, he knows how to stay in politics and in power. Now, he won the district by 2.7 despite Trump losing it by 6.3 in 2020, which proves that he outperformed Trump by like 9. Now, granted, these are 2 separate elections we're analyzing, but the point being is that he will outperform Trump. And if Trump loses Nebraska's 2nd district by less than 3, which I'm pretty sure he easily will do better than what I just said, then Don Bacon is likely to win for his 5th term, I believe. And so there you go. We have Chris Papas running. He outperformed Biden 2020 and 2022 by winning by 8.1 over Biden 6 percentage points. So he seems to be pretty likely to be a shoo-in there. Tom Keene in the state of New Jersey, though, is an interesting one against Sue Altman. He's an incumbent, a first-term one. In 2022, he outperformed Biden's margin by about, I would say, 7 percentage points. And so that's pretty impressive. So I think he will stay because 2024 is a favorable election for Republicans as of right now. And so the coattails from Donald Trump will have Tom Keene pretty steady in his incumbency for House. Gabriel Vasquez in New Mexico 2nd District against Yvette Harrell. This one's a really tough one because, again, Biden won this one by 6. And obviously Gabriel Vasquez won it by 0.7. And so he does worse than Biden, which is surprising. And he's a Mexican in New Mexico, and he does worse than Joe. Kind of lame. But anyway, just using the presidential election. So in an election where Biden won by 4.6, he won by 6. And so that means that New Mexico's 2nd District voted 1.3 percentage points to the left, more liberal than the national election popular vote. So what that means is that Trump would have to win the popular vote by 1.4 or more to beat or to carry Yvette Harrell over Gabriel Vasquez in this scenario, which I think would happen. Again, Donald Trump is leading the popular vote as of right now by like 2 points. And so that would be a slight Republican win, just by that logic. Anthony Despacito is in an election where Biden won the district by 15 percentage points. It's very dubious for a guy who, even though he might be sharp rhetorically, or better yet, more attuned to what he needs to do to stay elected in the state or in this district, the 4th one to be precise, I still think he'll lose. Again, it's a very big margin he would have to make up here. Michael Lawler is in a more enviable position. His district, 17th, only went to Biden by 10, but still it seems unlikely. So he's more likely to lose to Mondaire Jones. Pat Ryan, I think, will stay pat. Now, Mark Molinaro is interesting. Biden won this district by 4.5. If we apply the same logic as we did to the 2nd District in New Mexico, then it will go Republican again. Okay. Now, Brandon Williams is in a district that Biden won by over 10, and so that's going to stay put as well. Now, Marcy Kaptur is interesting. She's been in office for over 40 years and is running again. She outperformed the 2020 presidential election result by 16. And so you have to somewhat respect that. Obviously, in a federal election, it's more difficult to stay ahead as a lower office candidate. But that being said, I'm just going to respect the office. Again, 40 years in the game is pretty laudable. You might say, wow, she's a part of the swamp. But if the alligator is around still, goddamn, you know what? Bless him, because that is crazy to me. Amelia Sykes in Ohio's 13th district, it's a different question altogether. Amelia Sykes is in a position that is somewhat precarious. Again, she outperforms Joe Biden in 2020 by 2.6 percentage points. Though that might seem impressive, you have to understand that 2024 might be more favorable than 22. And so it's a difficult thing to say. Though, if we look at 2020 for what it is, you'll notice that I think, damn, this is super difficult to parse through. All right, so after ruminating about this for about 2 minutes, I'm going to give it to the Republican here. Again, for Joe to win the popular vote by almost 5 in 2020 and win by less than 3 in 2020 in this district, the 13th that is of Ohio, leads me to think that obviously Amelia Sykes is facing an uphill battle when Kamala is likely to lose the popular vote. And so for that logic, I will let Kevin Coughlin win the district. We're down to Oregon's 5th district, Lori Chavez DeRemer. She won in 22 by 2.1, so she outperformed Biden by 10. So that seems like a pretty good indicator that she will win again, and so it's not much more difficult than that. Susan Wild's a very difficult seat. Again, the 7th district, she outperformed Biden by 1.4, which is impressive. But just given how slightly Biden won the district and how much better Trump will do in 24, lets me think that I think the Republican would probably win this by 2. So Ryan McKenzie, W right there. Matt Cartwright is also interesting. You have a scenario where Trump won the district, Pennsylvania 8th district by 3 percentage points, and Matt Cartwright won it by 2.5. So he does 5.5% better. So it's a difficult thing to say here. Trump is likely to win the district, though, by like 6. And so I think Cartwright goes down by less than 1 percentage point with that logic. Chris Deluzio is in a very precarious position again. Rob McCurry, as a candidate that I don't really know, does have a decent shot of winning this district, though I think it's like a 60-40% chance that Chris Deluzio stays in Pennsylvania's 17th district. Again, he won it by about 7 percentage points last time. That's a pretty good margin to use as a cushion for this upcoming election in 2024. Jen Kiggins, again, she outperformed Trump by like 5, so she should be pretty cozy in the 2nd district. Abigail Spansberger is somebody who retired to run for office for governor of Virginia in 2025, which leads the Derek Anderson Republican versus Eugene Vindman for this upcoming election. So this is a difficult call to make for a couple of different reasons. Keep in mind that, again, she underperformed Joe Biden for whatever reason by over 2 percentage points in 2022, which is interesting. That being said, the district went to Biden by 7 percentage points in 2020. So will Trump do 7 points better there than before? I really, really doubt it. So unless the Democrat is particularly weak, I think the Republican will likely lose by like 2 percentage points. And so we're going to leave that blue. Mary Perez, though, in Washington's 3rd district, I think this is Joe Kent who is running here. He ran last time. He got close. Beside the point, though, because obviously we do have an election where Trump won the district in 2020 by over 4 percentage points and Mary won it by 1. And so with that slight victory in hand, I think that honestly Joe Kent or whoever the Republican will be will likely win the district from anywhere to 3 to 6. And so that is the final result there. Let's see how many seats we actually ended up with. The Republicans end up with 227 seats, whereas the Democrats end up with a 207 vote minority. That is a 20-seat majority. That is over double what the majority is for the Republicans right now. So while you might say, oh, the Republicans are just barely in control now, imagine if they had over double the cushion and headspace to make decisions as a caucus. We'll see how that plays out. So again, 227 seats for the Republican Party and 207 for the Democrats under Hakeem Jeffries. And so let's see how Mike Johnson or whoever the future speaker is handles this majority. And until then, I'll see y'all on the next video. Like the video if you liked it. Comment down below if you have any constructive criticism, and I will read them if they're cool. See ya in the next one. Adios.